All right. Welcome, everybody, to our first meeting of the season. For those of you who are not familiar with the group, my name is Nick Brigatti. I'm the one that's been sending you emails for the last couple of months. Thanks for getting on tonight. The plan for us throughout this group is to have biweekly-ish presentations, where I'm really opening the floor to whoever wants to potentially present. I'll talk more about the presentations and the way they're going to go in a schedule later at the end of this. But I thought we could dive in now that Prop has finally approved all the rules changes and really thankfully not approved the uniform police one that we were all concerned about. We're going to just dive in to the best of my ability. Now, what information do I have for you? It's basically the same stuff that came out in the prop things, although it did allow me to do a little bit of some synthesizing. So I don't know that I know any more than anybody else does, but I felt like this was going to be a good opportunity for us to start diving in. The floor is open to questions as we go, but let's just get started. How about that? So the big topic areas that I've kind of divvied this presentation up into are timing, the horse collar tackle change, the replay rules, the technology rules, and player numbering. Now, not all of these rule changes are applicable at all divisions, specifically around the replay rules and technology rules. But for those of us who are in Division III and potentially NAIA, I honestly have no idea what NAIA did last year as it relates to first downs. The rule change that was adopted last year that is for Divisions I and II, that have also been modified by the new 2-minute timing rules. We'll talk about all that stuff. So this is where it's going to go. Let's start with the biggest change, the 2-minute timeout. Don't call it a 2-minute warning. The 2-minute timeout. We're going to take a timeout with either 2 minutes remaining in either half if the ball's dead, or as soon as the ball becomes dead if the ball was live at 2 minutes. We're going to take a 2-minute timeout. In the event that your game is televised, radio, whatever, the goal here is for whoever's broadcasting the game to hold back a media timeout and take their last media timeout during this 2-minute break. This is where this should occur. In the event there isn't a media timeout at that point, the 2-minute timeout is just a minute plus the play clock interval. So that's what we're looking for. For those of you who didn't know this, only some of us are this old, and I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to put anybody on blast that doesn't want to be, but it's only called a 2-minute warning in the NFL, which is something I learned from the RMAC supervisor and the Big Sky supervisor over the last weekend. It's only called a 2-minute warning in the NFL because they used to keep time on the field and they actually had to warn the teams. But I would hope that everywhere you're going to work has a clock. So 2-minute timeout, not the 2-minute warning. So all of the timing rules that used to be different with various clock times, under 2 and under 1, they're all synced up with the 2-minute timeout. So everything that we were doing in the last 2 minutes, even if we were only doing it in the last 1 minute, now matches with before the 2-minute timeout and after the 2-minute timeout. So what are we talking about? We're talking about first down timing rules, which I'll cover in a minute. We're talking about any time a run, fumble, or backward pass goes out of bounds. Out of bounds before the 2-minute timeout. We'll always be on the ready for play in these circumstances. And then after the 2-minute timeout, we're going on the snap. Same with timing rules related to penalty enforcement in Rule 343B. When do we give the tied team or the trailing team in these circumstances the clock option to start the clock on the snap versus ready for play? Now we'll just be following the 2-minute timeout. Similarly, if we have not reached the 2-minute timeout yet, instant replay cannot adjust the clock. Once we get inside the 2-minute timeout, replay can make those changes. All of the 10-second runoff situations have now been expanded from the last minute of the half to after the 2-minute timeout. So we could have a runoff for any of our fouls, helmet off, replay, or injury, starting with the 2-minute timeout. Additionally, and this is something that Steve Shaw said at the Honix Clinic, for those of you who were there, or was in the document, we have those situations where sometimes if we have a defensive injury, the play clock will be reset to 40 seconds, regardless of anything else that happened on the play. In this particular case, coming out of the 2-minute timeout, we should have a 25-second play clock. Any questions about this?
I don't know if it's a question or I'm interpreting this, Nick, as if we haven't done or said 2-minute timeout, and something happens, and even though clock ran to 1:57, we're not going to have any of those timing rules until we've made the announcement 2 minute, correct?
That would be my interpretation. Is that, for those of you on the replay side, have you had any guidance about that specifically?
That's what we've been told in the replay meetings I've been in so far.
Let me ask you this, Frank. Unofficially, if the clock runs for an extra couple of seconds, you would probably still just tell us on the field that the clock ran and we could adjust it, correct?
Yeah, correct. We're not going into a stoppage to tell you that.
Right.
We're going to O2 it.
Well, we could, I mean, that's the nice part about for those of us who will work, broadcast games, we take the 2-minute timeout with 1:57, we come back from a commercial and it says 2 minutes. I think we're all happy with that.
Is the question more so if they snap the ball at 2:02 and at 1:57 we rule intentional grounding? We're not going to have a 10-second runoff in that, correct?
I would
Because
agree.
we did
I would
not
agree
take.
with that.
Is that your question, Brian?
Yeah, to that effect, yes. Like until we have, so literally all of the 2 minutes rules that we just covered are not going to be in effect until we have made the announcement 2 minute timeout. And so, yeah, intentional grounding, anything else, that was going to stop the clock other than the 2 minute warning, those things, yeah, no zap 10s, no nothing until we make the announcement.
Yeah, yes, that would be my takeaway from that as well.
Yeah.
Just because we happen to be in the last 2 minutes, if we haven't taken the 2-minute timeout, we can't do anything with those related to the clock.
But Nick, there's an obvious rule reason for that, right? Because we haven't had the 2-minute timeout, so the clock is going to stop anyway.
Yeah,
that
right.
is why.
Yeah, if you think about all of our situations in which the 10-second runoff or 10-second subtraction will be triggered, the 2-minute timeout would be another reason to stop the clock that would prevent us from triggering one of those runoff situations. So it's a good question. And, obviously we all expect continued guidance. I'm actually a little surprised that we don't have a CFO video yet, basically doing exactly what I'm doing tonight. So,
Good thing you're recording this. We can use yours.
Yeah, I'll send it to Shaw right after this, I think.
Right. What I was on a call last weekend, what we were basically told, until we have that stoppage, until we have a play that starts after that 2-minute stoppage, none of those timing rules are in effect at all.
Yep.
So it's after the stoppage. If it starts before the stoppage, we're playing straight football.
So that would mean, Frank, to me, that if let's say we snap the ball 2:01, we have a pass near the sideline, it's the ruling on the field is a catch, guy gains some more yards, he gets tackled with like 150 on the game clock.
Gotcha.
And you can prove that, in fact, either the pass was incomplete or that guy stepped out of bounds and the clock should say 1:55. Based on that rule, we should not be able to make that clock adjustment because we didn't actually take the 2-minute timeout until 1:50. Yes?
Correct. So whatever it is, when the on-field folks shut it down, 150 versus when he stepped out of bounds at 155 in your example, we leave it at 150.
Okay.
Is my understanding. And it's also on the CFO test. That was a similar question on the CFO test today.
Okay.
Or the answers came out to today.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected the answer to that question to be.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I'm not, personally, I'm not crazy about us not making more clock adjustments. I mean, I understand from a game flow perspective, but I do think that there are certainly places in the game where there could be an obvious disadvantage that just because it happened before the 2-minute timeout in and of itself isn't a great reason, but I understand where we're coming from.
We can still fix egregious timing errors if pick a number 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 seconds runoff. We can still go over that based on the replay God rule.
Yep, right. Or until something happens that causes the bulletin to make an interpretation that we have to go with.
Yeah, or the wind changes and they change their mind.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions about 2-minute timeout?
No, just to clarify stuff there, Nick. Dean made it very clear there's a demarcation spot with a 2-minute timeout. So the first play after the 2-minute timeout is the first play. Replay can adjust the clock. Anything prior to that, we're out of it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate everybody that's been on other meetings that has information, because all I have was a document I read and talking to Steve Shaw for 2 minutes at Honix. All right, moving on. So for those of us who worked Division I or Division II last season, this is not new, but this is now stuff that's applied to all divisions, and we are not stopping the game clock for Team A first downs until we've reached the 2-minute timeout. No other changes to the rule, but it's important to remember for those of us who we're working Division III, this is now out. You know, now everybody's back to the playing rules are not federated. It's one book for everybody. Some video clip reminders, and these are older clips, which we'll see here in a second. But in this particular play, you know, you can see here in this play, we are over 2 minutes, about 6:20 to go. You know, we're going to see this player gain the line, inbounds, and the covering official is just going to put their hand up. So, you know, if you're working D3, you got to start shaking that habit, right? You got to start to shake the habit of being in a situation where we are stopping the clock on those plays. Similarly, here we are, we're in, you know, 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. We gain the line, we're near the sideline. Hand up, wind is appropriate in some cases. Obviously, do what your supervisor wants. I have no games for you. But here we are.
Hey,
yep, go ahead.
sorry.
Yes, how dare
you
you
say
ask a
stopping the
question,
clock.
Richard? How dare you?
Sorry. Yeah, you say stopping the clock for the short wings, and it is important, but I saw in D2 last year that a lot of times on these big long runs, like the deeps would stop the clock. And you'd be like, no, we gotta start it back up. But, you know, so that's something for deeps to think about as well. You know, you don't stop on an automatic like 45-yard run where, you know, every time before that, you know, and if you're working high school, you still do it and things like that. So that's something that the deeps have to get used to as well. It's not just for the short. I mean, mainly for the short wings. Don't get me wrong, but
Yep.
the deeps have to get used to it as well.
As a deep,
Go ahead, Billy.
as a deep, it's very awkward because anytime a play got to us, 99.9% of the time we're killing the clock. And so it is very awkward and practice. But after about 2 or 3 games, you should be all right.
Yep. Thanks. I appreciate that. And then here's just an example. And, you know, we get under the 2-minute timeout, and things are back to normal as far as we're concerned. You know, things we've been doing our whole careers. Apologize for not editing this clip a little shorter. That's on me.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful.
Gain the line to gain, inbounds, still we're killing. You know, no change to that for us. So if that's what you're used to in D3, now we're still doing it, but we won't be doing it now instead of now just in the last 2 minutes, it's after the 2-minute timeout, which is really nice for us as short wings specifically, because now we don't have to be worried so much about finding the clock as the play ends around 2 minutes. We either have taken the timeout or we have not taken the timeout. All right. Questions about any of the timing stuff? Okay. So let's talk. Go ahead, Frank. Do you have something?
Well, I was just going to say, when we have the 2-minute timeout, we in the booth are going to talk about the new 2-minute stuff. Guys on the field, don't be afraid to get on the 020 and remind your working partners on the field. Now we're in the 2-minute, so it's a time to recalibrate yourself while we have the downtime.
Yeah, I know that in the NFL with the 2-minute warning, all those guys get together and somebody usually reads like the timing rule changes off a card. I actually think that's a really good idea that I hope to bring to my crew in the fall. Once we get a little further along in that process, I think that's a really good way. We did that. I worked a spring game out here a couple of weeks ago, and I pulled everybody together to make sure we were doing that just so we were all on the same page. I think that's a good strategy to make sure we all don't, you know, we all get back into that habit. I think that's what it needs to be.
Yeah,
And the last
agree. And
point-
the other thing is reminding your coaches when you get back to the sideline, wing guys, short and deep wings, remind those coaches, hey, the timing rules now change. We are after the 2-minute timeout.
Go ahead, Billy.
If you do happen to stop the clock after, a first down by accident, just simply give it a wind as soon as you realize it and just keep the clock going. It's no big deal.
Yep. All right. So let's transition into some of the other rule changes. First of all, horse collar, previous years, it was legal to horse collar a player in the tackle box. Well, the ball carrier in the tackle box, whether that was a potential passer or the running back. That exception to do that has been eliminated. So anything that is a horse collar tackle anywhere on the field is a foul for horse collar tackle. Pretty straightforward. If you weren't working on the line of scrimmage or as a referee or a center judge / umpire in the backfield, this probably didn't come up for you anyway. All right, let's talk about the replay stuff. And obviously, if there are those of you who work replay, feel free to chime in if you think I'm about to say something wrong. But the rules now formally permit collaborative replay, which is something that most of the Power 5, 4, 4.5, whatever, we're doing anyway. So now it's now formally supported in the rules. It was experimental. Now it's formally supported. Additionally, there was at least one game last year where we went to halftime, replay reviewed a thing at halftime, and we came back and had to replay the last play of the first half or the first half, and then kick off to start the third quarter. Now, once the referee declares the first half is over, we cannot review anything. So, we need to make sure, for those of you who work replay games, make sure you're getting an all clear from replay before you end the half if you're a referee. The only exception to that, if you are working a game without instant replay, but you still have the halftime targeting review, obviously you can still review you need to go into halftime and review for the targeting during halftime. That does not change that rule. Some other replay change.
Two heavyweights. I'm never going to finish this.
Richard, you got something?
Oh,
or do you mean to be?
Sorry.
That's right.
I need to. Sorry, my bad. I thought everyone was.
No worries, man. If a passer is ruled down or out of bounds prior to throwing a pass, previously replay could not be involved in that. If we got it wrong because we put him down, replay couldn't do anything with that. Now replay can reverse the ruling provided that pass is caught or intercepted, but the ball is going to belong to whoever has the ball at the spot, at that spot. It's just like a fumble recovery after we rule the ball dead. They cannot advance. So they'll get the catch, they'll get the interception, but the ball's dead at that spot. That's the end of the play. That can be corrected.
Yeah, Nick, I
Go
think
ahead,
this was a part of some philosophy stuff that hadn't actually been put in the rule book. And so I think this was to make sure the rules followed up with philosophy.
Yep. And so this is also one of those things, if we reverse a ruling on the field and there were live ball fouls that are now dead ball fouls because they occurred after the ball was declared dead by replay, if they're 5 and 10 yard penalties, they're not enforced. They go away. But we would still enforce personal fouls and unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. So you could be in a situation where, I intercept a pass close to the ground. I keep running. During the return, we have an illegal block in the back by the return team, and then I'm tackled by my face mask. Replay comes in and pages us and indicates, actually, there is an interception, but that guy was down by rule before he advanced, or he didn't intercept the ball. In either case, if either of those things are true, the block in the back goes away, but we still would enforce the face mask foul I described as a dead ball personal foul in whichever the new ruling on the field is. Does that make sense to everybody? And we were doing this, but it's now in the rules formally. Any questions or thoughts about that? All right. Some additional technology stuff. Coach to player communication is permitted in FBS only. And only one player is permitted to be on the field per team with this capability. That player is going to have a green dot on his helmet. For those of you watching enough pro football, this is how the NFL does it. Everybody's got a green dot on their helmet if it's an issue, if they have the technology. If we catch 2 helmets in the game, that's when we are concerned as officials on the field. We throw the flag. It's a 5-yard equipment foul. Plus, it automatically is supposed to trigger a conference review. Obviously, the conference review process has nothing to do with us on the field or in the booth, other than the fact that we write it up. Additionally, the communication is supposed to be cut off with 15 seconds remaining on the play clock or the snap, whichever occurs first, and then turns back on when the play clock is reset because the down is over. They were talking about developing back judge mechanics in the event the in-stadium play clock fails. And I can tell you, for the back judges in the room, it looked like a lot of fun what I saw them talking about. So I don't know how far down the line we've gotten on that, but I hope for all of your sakes that your play clocks don't fail. The conferences may develop a policy to deal with what happens if one team's green dot guy goes down. You know, the helmet stuff doesn't work. But as it stands, it's not covered in the rules. Just like when the headsets go down, it's not covered in the rules, but the conference policies may dictate something different. Also, if you are working an FCS, a team in which an FCS team plays an FBS team, the FCS teams may use coach-to-player communications in that game. I talked to a couple of FCS supervisors at a clinic I was just at in Denver over the weekend, and they're trying to make it clear to their teams that this is something that is probably to their advantage to try out so that they're ready to go when this invariably trickles down in future years. Questions about this?
I was going to ask, do they have a definition of exactly what coach to player communication is?
Not that I've seen, but I would assume we're talking about, you know, it could be the in-helmet, you know, those of you who are unfamiliar with the way that the NFL system works, generally the quarterback and usually the middle linebacker, but it could be anybody, has like a built-in speaker. Or if you watch the UFL games, right? Somebody on the sideline usually has a walkie-talkie, and that walkie-talkie is a one-way communication to get a play call into that person that's got the headset. The systems are not cheap, as I learned when I talked to a coach during a spring practice. And I don't know what teams are going to do when they have situations in which maybe they have a regular quarterback, but they have a wildcat quarterback and they can't have two green dots on the field. So is somebody going to switch helmets? What are they going to do in that situation? They're figuring all those things out. The important stuff for us is only that they can't have two green dot players on the same team on the field during a down. That's all we really have to be worried about at this point.
I just wanted to make sure that, you know, if someone has the fortune of being able to have someone like Gallaudet, where they've got the right in helmet monitor situation, does that count as coach to player communication? And that's an FCS school.
Yes, that's a great question that I am not equipped to answer at this time.
It's okay. I'll bring it up on over the weekend and let you know what the chief answers.
That's good. Appreciate that. Other questions here?
Do we know if
Actually
anyone's
be
monitoring this?
activated and
Hang
deactivated.
on. Billy Willis.
Is anyone monitoring this communication to make sure it does cut off at 15? Do we know? I mean, don't they I know they do that in the NFL.
Also, great question. Here's who I know is not responsible for that. Me.
Us. Fair.
And replay is not going, what I've been told so far, replay is not going to get involved with monitoring the green dots. It's on the field, folks.
Yep. So, you know, I suspect that, I mean, I don't know, you know, the nice part is in the NFL, there are people who work for the league that are responsible for this. I'm not really sure how that's going to work for us. But again, that part of it is not really a thing I am personally very worried about. So, all right, moving on. Tablets for in-game video. This is stuff that is new. Coaches, people in the team area can use tablets on the sideline, restricted to in-game video for the current game only. They can't be looking at, you know, scouting video from other teams' games or anything, practice video, anything like that. They can be used in the coach's box, the sideline, and the locker room. Cannot be interconnected to other devices to project larger or additional images. Apologize for the dog noises in the background. Video can include coach's sideline, coach's end zone, and a program feed per play from the current game only, and can also involve game circumstance information, down, distance, time, quarter, et cetera, et cetera. Team can have up to 18 standard tablets active, and all team personnel may view the tablets. Now, we are not responsible for counting the tablets. We have almost nothing to do with the tablets, except that if team personnel engages us on the sideline with a tablet to show or review video, it's an unsportsmanlike conduct. That is the only thing that we are limited that's our only engagement with this technology. Is that if a coach comes to you that because they want to show you something that they think you screwed up, and they put a tablet out there for you to see, you are supposed to flag them with unsportsmanlike conduct. But you know,
Same exact time.
we're not counting.
Good job.
time, so
Way to go, babe. Let's go.
questions on this? All right. In the other field equipment stuff, they made some formal changes to equipment on the field. Head coaches can be interviewed during the quarter breaks. That's not a rule that we care about particularly. It's just that it's a playing rule. So there's it. Change possession or timeout. A TV camera can come out to watch players enter the huddle and all that kind of stuff. And they can do the same thing after a touchdown. They can enter the field in the end zone to capture team personnel reactions. They're allowed to have institutional videographers in the team area. Additionally, institutional ball personnel may not wear smartwatches or communication technology on the opponent's sideline, which is a rule because I'm sure it came up. That's the only reason I can speculate as to why we have a problem, or at least because somebody's paranoid about it.
Nick, does that include or exclude the chain crew?
I would say no, because it says ball personnel in the rules. Now, if it says no person, then that would be different. But I got ball personnel, so I would only be worried about ball personnel. And frankly, I'm not personally terribly worried about it as an official either, except that if they complain, I suspect I would have to tell my referee that we have a problem. But beyond that, that's probably the extent to which I am concerned about it.
Yeah, ball personnel and chain crew kind of fall into the same situation from the perspective of if it's something we need to address, we can address it. Usually ball personnel are students, whereas the chain crew are usually assigned to the game, so it's a little bit different. There were some issues and concerns about ball personnel texting to the other sideline what's going on, and that sort of stuff. So the point behind this is that it's to make it clear so that if there is an issue that needs to be addressed, we have the rules behind us to support it.
Yep. Makes sense to me. As it comes to other wearable technology, Billy, this is a little bit to the thing that you rose earlier, because that's a Gallaudet helmet there. Basically, the rules committee is letting the lower divisions submit wearable technology experimental things to the committee for individual approval. I would suspect that if you happen to be working in a conference that permits this or whatever, you'll get more guidance from them on the specifics of that. But that's all I've got. Last thing is about player numbering. This part's not new. Player who changes their number during the game has to report to the referee. But we're worried about whatever their number was on the game day roster. Those are the people that have to report when they change and where they change back. I had a game a couple of years ago where they had this is probably more of a problem for road teams than necessarily home teams, because road teams generally can't travel with as many people as they would normally have at home. So we had an issue where it was a kickoff. There are two guys on a kickoff team on the travel squad, both had the same number. So this guy had to change his jersey every time to go out on a kickoff. They'd run the kickoff. He'd leave the game, change his jersey again, have to report again. And if they ever didn't do that, that's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for entering and participating without reporting. So, questions about any of that? All right. So those are the rules and editorial changes. I suspect we'll get a Shaw video with probably has some more guidance, probably has more example plays, not from leagues that don't exist anymore, like I did here later. So I just wanted to do a real quick rundown for those of you who are new to the group. Just familiarize yourself. If you haven't been to the website, I really encourage you to do that. I'll drop the web address in the chat, although I suspect most of you who are on this call have done that because you got the email, which means, all right, Jeff, thank you. I saw the note that Jeff put in the chat about NAIA having done the first down stuff. So we're really only dealing with D3. Back to what I was talking about again. Go to the website. If you haven't checked it out, there's the forum. You can send it to your friends if they want to get signed up and get on the email list. I've got quizzes. The forum is kind of a little bit dead. I'd love to get more action on it, but such is life. I put all of our regular quiz. I put the quiz out every week. You can take a look there. Camps and clinics information's up to date. There's some other videos, links to our YouTube page where I upload all the videos like this, so you can go back and use them in study meetings or whatever you'd like. Additionally, as it relates to that, here's the calendar of events as it stands right now for us to have presentations in the future. I appreciate Seth Wasserman willing to step up to do a presentation here in 2 weeks about health and wealth as an official. So that will be on Monday night. Links, email, calendar invitations, all that stuff to follow. I hope if you have something that you are interested in sharing with the group in a presentation format, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to have you on the schedule. I do personally enjoy doing this, but I can tell you that doing it every other week for myself can get really tiring. So I would appreciate if other folks had a willingness to step up and do that. So if you want to do that, feel free to shoot me an email, text, whatever. But that's what I've got for tonight. So I appreciate everybody being on. Any questions about anything? All right, short and sweet. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your weeks. Quizzes and things that I get, I'll upload, I'll email, all that kind of stuff. So have a great weekend. I hope to see you all down the road. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks. Have a good night. man.
Thanks, Nick.
Have a
Good
great
man.
weekend.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Nick.